Hey everybody, welcome back. This is another episode of Recommended Reading, and we have quite a few to go over today, so we're going to jump right into it. I have a couple of these already. I will list the playlist down below and at the end of this video. So I have some ones that I really liked and some ones that I really did not like. So starting off, recapping some of the ones that I told you I was going to start in the last one. The selection series, oh my god. I finished books 1, 2, and 3, which is the main core books. 4 and 5 finish up with the daughter's story, which I was completely uninterested in by the end of book 3. But here's the thing. Just to really recap very quickly, it is taking place in a kind of post-America America. It's no longer America, and there is a monarchy. And basically they undergo The Bachelor whenever the prince is trying to choose a wife. And the main girl, America, the names in this book are just freaking hilarious, but she is such a freaking crybaby. I could not stand her. For her to be the main character just really ground my gears like no other. She was such a brat. I hated her. And honestly, the prince also was not great. I did not like the characters in the book at all. I know that one of you said that this is your favorite, series or whatever books, and girl, I applaud you for finishing them, because I just after that third book, I was like, okay, finally I'm done with this. I'm not going to read the rest of them. For me, it just I don't mind the suspension of disbelief, but I do mind the suspension of common sense, because there were so many things that happened in the book that were just nobody would actually do that in real life. The characters just did not act in a common sense manner. And every single time that the prince said something that she didn't like, she was like, fine, I'm just gonna go back with my ex-boyfriend. And then he would, the next second, he would buy her a gift or something, and it's oh, I love you, Max. And I can't. I just cannot. So that is done and over with. Thank you, Jesus. Moving right along. I finished books 5 and 6 of the Charlie Davidson series. That's the one where she is the Grim Reaper and she is dating the son of Satan. He's a good guy, I promise. And it's kind of like her, it's Stephanie Plum with a supernatural factor. There is, at this point, quite a few people reading the last books or the latest books, so I'm on a waiting list for 7, 8, and 9, and it goes up to 13, which I believe is going to be the last book in the series, which hurts my heart. But I read 5 and 6. They were just as good as the others, if not a little bit better. I'm really getting invested in them, so I highly recommend that series over the selection if you are into something like that. I'm currently on the wait list for the others, so hopefully I get to finish those next month. The Wife Between Us. Oh my goodness. Looking at this list, this is one of the ones that you really should read, that I would highly recommend. It is a suspense, thriller, mystery type of thing. I was just starting this the last time that we spoke about this stuff, and oh my gosh, there was 3 major plot twists, and every time I'm listening to it driving down the road, kind of half paying attention, and then I would hear it and I'm wait a minute, and I had to back it up and really listen, because it was just not what you're expecting. So it starts off, you think that the ex-wife is stalking the new wife or new fiance, and you kind of get the sense that the husband may not also be what he seems, but it is all that and more, and completely not what you would expect. And I feel like I really can't say a whole lot more without completely giving away the major plot twist. But just, if you are into that type of book, suspense, thriller, mystery, crime, oh my gosh, check it out. Check it out. Moving right along to Woman Number 17. This is totally my fault why I wasn't this that into this book. I thought that it was a suspense thriller. Maybe I just read the description wrong, but it was kind of more of a play on exploring relationships, exploring what it means to be married, what it means to be a mom, what it means to be a parent, you know, and a child. And it was just, I kept waiting for it to like pick up, and it just kind of coasted along into nowhere. It was good, but I felt kind of let down because I expected it to be more like twisty-turny, and it was more just like, this is real life in a weird way. I wouldn't particularly recommend it, but if that sounds like something you'd be into, there's the book. You can go and check that out. Oh, also a 17. The 17th Suspect is the latest one in the Woman's Murder Club series from James Patterson. You guys, this series keeps getting like worse and worse. I'm to the point where I'm like, do I even want to read the next one? Because I feel like he's kind of run out of ideas. I struggled to get through this book because it was just not captivating me at all, which sucks because I feel like typically he's really good, but I don't know, man. This one, not great. The Woman in the Window. There's a lot of like women and wives in here. The Woman in the Window. This is one of those like big like books I think that came out over the summer or a little bit earlier. It was one of those like everybody's reading it, everybody's pushing it. And I will say that it was really good, but also it required a lot of suspension of disbelief because there is the factor of, well, why can't you just freaking go outside? You know, the woman is housebound. She has severe agoraphobia, and you find out that, you know, it's because she's living alone. She is separated from her husband and child, and she used to be a psychologist, but now she is, you know, so severely anxious and stuff that she just can't go outside. So she watches people from her window, and she like spies on everybody and knows what's going on in the neighborhood. And then a new family moves in next door or across the park or something, and she gets kind of sucked into their world, and chaos ensues. It's very like kind of a slow burn, but once it gets going, you're like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And there are definitely times where you're like, is she imagining things? Did it really happen? So it definitely messes with your mind, and there is a major plot twist toward like the second, the last 1/3 of the book or whatever, where you're like, whoa. I kind of saw it coming, but I really didn't think I saw it coming, you know, and it was just, it messed with me a little bit, but it was good. It's just a little bit more of a slow burn. So if you don't have a lot of patience for like waiting for the book to build up, probably not the one for you. But if you do like kind of savoring, you know, the intensifying of the story, you'd probably like it. I'm kind of one way or the other, you know. Sometimes I'm okay with it, sometimes I'm not. This one kept my attention long enough to get me to the good bits, so I did like it. Try not to spend too much time talking about each one of these so that it's not insanely long. So if you want to know more about any of them or my thoughts on them, you can ask me down in the comments so that we can get through this. Next one is The Flight Attendant by Chris Bojalian. Now I'm going to mention him because I can actually remember his name, but also because I've read a couple other of his books and I liked them, but they're those ones where you're kind of like, okay, where's this going? Where's this going? And then finally it takes off and you're like, okay, now I'm good. So it wasn't quite as much of a slow burn as the Woman in the Window, but it did take a little bit. And I heard that they're turning it into a movie with Kaylee Cuoco as the flight attendant. So, you know, that might be kind of cool. But anyway, this flight attendant, she's a drunk. She flies to like Europe and stuff all the time. She goes to bed with a guy in Dubai, wakes up and he's dead. And she can't remember if she killed him or not. So she's kind of like on the run, and you know right off the bat, because it's revealed to you that She did not kill him. Somebody else killed him, but she doesn't know that until quite far along in the book. And there are some nice little plot twists in there. But I will say that there is a narrator, if you listen to the audiobook, that narrates some of his other books as well, and her name is Grace Experience. And I found out that she is his daughter, which no wonder why she gets to narrate several of his books, but her voice grates on me. Oh my God. I can't stand the way that she narrates things, but luckily she is not the main narrator in this book. So, you know, and if you're reading the ebook or paper book, then you don't have to worry about her, but nepotism at its best right there. The next one that I read is Murder on the Orient Express. This is an Agatha Christie book. It is one of the few of hers that I have not read, so I was like, well, might as well. It's available, and I don't really have anything else. It was terrible. I know it's like a classic, and it was, it was good, but it took so freaking long to get to the ending that by the time that we wrapped everything up, I was like, oh my God, just hurry it up already. I was pretty much just plodding along, waiting for the end. I didn't feel like it was that great. Like, the story was good, but I think the storytelling of it was not her best work, which is weird because I feel like it gets the most press. But I also tend to like Miss Marple as opposed to Poirot. So maybe that's why I didn't particularly love that one as much. But as the title implies, somebody dies on the Orient Express. That's all you need to know about that. Next one is The Deepest Secret. This one was interesting. I thought it was pretty good, but if I had the choice, I wouldn't have read it knowing what I know now. I don't feel like it was a waste, but I feel like it was kind of one of those where you're given so many like extraneous details that are just kind of not freaking necessary, and it's just filler. So the book has a mom, a dad, and then 2 children, and she is a stay-at-home, like work-from-home mom because her youngest child, the son, has XP, which is the vampire disease. He cannot go out in the daylight. He can't let UV rays touch him or else he basically dies. And that's not me being flip. It's just, that's what happens. And it is a real disease. And I have read a few books that actually feature that in it. But I feel like this one almost made the character seem kind of whiny. And it was, you know, the overall story, though, was interesting, and I will tell you that you do find out right off the bat, so I don't feel like it's a spoiler, that she ends up running over and killing a neighbor girl who happens to be the daughter of her best friend. And because of her son's illness, she feels like, I can't rely on my husband. My daughter is a teenager. Like, I can't rely on her to take care of him. And he will most likely die by the time he's 20. So, and he's like 15 now or something. So she's like, do I report it or do I just hope that I don't get found out so that I can take care of my son? So the whole premise is her just like wrestling with this and trying not to get caught and, you know, just wanting to be there for her kid. And at the end, I will say I was quite disappointed with, because I feel like it was just kind of a crap, we need to wrap things up, so let's just do a cop-out, and it was a cop-out for sure. So not spectacular, but it wasn't super bad. Next up is The Secrets You Keep, and this one, to be perfectly honest, like I barely remember, even though I liked it whenever I was reading it. I had to reread the summary right before this because I was like, wait a minute, what was that book? But I do think it was better than the Deepest Secret. This woman is in a car accident that kills her colleague, and she has no memory of what happened to precipitate the car accident. I don't think that that's the right word, but she has no memory of it. And her husband is kind of like being a little bit difficult with dealing with her on it. And there's like, she moves to northern New York, you know, for the summer or whatever, to kind of heal and work on her newest novel and stuff. And people end up dying in the town, and she's like trying to figure out the mystery while also unraveling the mystery of how this car accident came about. And it actually ties into why people are dying in the town. So it was good. It's just one of those that is kind of like a junk food read. You know, you read it, you enjoy it, and then it's like as soon as you finish it, you don't really remember much about it. But I don't mind books like that. I tend to like them. Just a few left. Next up is Wife Number 22. This was a cute novel. It had a little bit of drama, but not too much. It's more like a just kind of everyday average fiction book. Like, it's not necessarily any one particular genre. This wife has a husband and 2 kids, and she's feeling a little bit stale in her marriage. So one day she gets an email from a research facility who wants to do research on marriage, and they're offering her $1,000 to kind of do this survey, you know, kind of a long survey. And so she's assigned a certain researcher so that they can kind of get to know each other, but anonymously. And she kind of starts like flirting with him a little bit, and she finally feels like, oh, things are getting like kind of spicy. It's kind of making her also want her husband more, while at the same time kind of flirting with him and kind of thinking like, could I leave my husband for him, and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to give away too much, but I feel like the author kind of gave it away also. Or maybe I just listened to too much music. But as soon as Researcher 101 said getting caught in the rain, I knew the whole plot of the book, but it didn't like negate me liking the book also. So even though I knew what was going on at that point, which was fairly early in the book, I still totally enjoyed it, and it was a really good read. And I think the ending came together really nicely. It could have went really, really sappy. It could have went the way opposite direction, but I think it just took a nice even keel and ended really nicely. So I did like that book. Next up is You Are One of Them, and this is one where it actually is funny because it reminds me of an episode of The Golden Girls where Rose gets her like Girl Scout troop to write letters to Gorbachev, I think. About like the nuclear crisis or something, and they choose her letter because they think that she's like a 7-year-old girl, and instead she's like 70 or whatever. But anyway, in this book, 2 young girls both decide to write letters to Andropov, I think is the name in the book, which was probably a Russian person in real life, but same premise, writing letters about nuclear disarmament. And one of their letters gets chosen, the other does not, and she goes on to become like a kind of famous, you know, she gets a book deal, and she's like only 12, I think, in the book. And then she dies mysteriously in a plane crash along with her parents and just disappears. The bodies were never found or anything. And then cut to like 10 years later, the other girl receives an email saying, hey, do you know for sure that your friend is dead? I have information. So she flies to Russia, and ensues this whole like thing of immersing into the culture and trying to find answers about what happened to her friend. And I don't want to give away too much. I keep saying that, but I don't want to give you too many spoilers. But the end of the book, you kind of see coming and you kind of don't. And it does kind of leave it on a little bit of a cop-out, you know, like I wish that there would have been a specific answer to this one particular thing, but there just kind of wasn't. But you kind of know the answer given the context clues. So it's one of those, but I did enjoy the book. I thought it was pretty darn good. And then the last one is the most recent one that I finished, The Girl Before. This one I would also highly recommend. It was really interesting, and it was also very similar storytelling to The Wife Between Us. So both of those books I would definitely recommend. This one is about two women who are both looking for an apartment to live in London-ish, somewhere around there. And they find this house that is just architecturally stunning, completely out of their league, but the rent is very cheap because in order to live there, you have to sign this whole like contract of 200 items that you can't break the rules on, like no clutter, no, like kids, no pets, no blah, 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 blah. And they agree to do it because the rent is cheap, but you have to also participate in like the electronics of the house, like sending it metrics on your well-being and stuff so that they can see how the house affects you. And it's kind of simultaneously telling their two stories 3 years apart. And one of them dies and one of them is not dead yet. So you're kind of going through and finding out why did the first one die and what's going to happen to the second one and who did it. And is it the house? Is it the guy that owns the house? Is it a boyfriend? Like, you don't know until almost the end. And I feel like it was really, really good. So I would definitely recommend that one. So that is it, guys. I hope that you got some good book recommendations from this. And I will continue on. I will be back at you in roughly another month to tell you what else I've read. And if you guys have any suggestions based on what you hear that I like in here, leave them down below because I am always looking for new books to read. I feel like I tried a lot this time around that were ones that I wouldn't typically go for, but some of them worked out. So that is it. I will catch you guys next time. Bye.